What up, guys? What up? I am Lou. And today, guys, we're going to be adding to our multi-part series video of interacting with SharePoint with Python. So in this video, we're going to be accessing a SharePoint list. And the goal here is we want to be able to download that list. And as we download a list from SharePoint, we're going to save those results, right? And we're going to do apply two methods to when it comes to saving. We're either going to save it as a CSV file or save it as an Excel file. You know, one or the other, right? So ideally, you could do more stuff with it. You could save it to a database, but we're going to just stick for now CSV Excel. Right, so that's the whole video, guys. We're going to be accessing SharePoint. We're going to be downloading a SharePoint list, saving it locally, CSV and Excel. But before we get started, guys, if you give me a like, give me a follow, man, I really appreciate it. I've been getting a lot of love and support from y'all, man, and I'm thankful for it and appreciate it. Hit that like button and give me a follow. All right, guys, let's get started. So again, this is part of a project that we're adding on to an existing project. So those of you who are new, this is your first time watching the video, this is probably going to be part 3 of the series. There you go, find in my GitHub account, you'll find the source code and we're adding to it. Right, so you could tell so far we have a download files function and the upload file function. So what we're going to end up doing, we're going to end up adding another function, right? In this case, we're going to add a function and we're going to call this function get list, right? One list, not list, but one list only, right? So that's ultimately what we want. So we're going to end up passing in, you know, it was kind of small. Let me make it bigger. Just realized it was a bit small. All right, cool. That should be big enough, I think. Yeah. So it is going to take a argument, which in this case would be the list name, right? So whatever your list name is, that's what it's going to end up taking. So one thing I do want to show y'all is I created this very basic, simple list in SharePoint. Nothing special, but it's a list that I created, and it's called employee onboarding. And then again, you got a few columns, right? You have the name, which is again meet team, meet manager, description, date complete, some dates, things of that nature, right? So again, just very basic, nothing special. But again, this is the list, and this is the list name. If you look at the URL, just kind of, you know, to kind of get more familiar with it, you'll see where it says sites, the name of the site, which in mine is called development, right? Development. And then also list. And then of course you have the name of the list, right? Employee %20 is, you know, represents space for the URL. And then of course onboarding, right? So that's kind of what that ultimately represents. So, dude, my screen turning on and off, I thought that's what it seemed like. That's odd. Either way. All right, guys, I actually had some issues. I had to reboot my machine. So hopefully we don't have these issues again where my screen share is kind of, you know, I was getting the Elgato error message. So hopefully that's not the case anymore. But either way, let's go ahead and continue on. But this is the list. Kind of want to share that. So our, you know, of course our function is going to take a list name, right? You know what? Need to open up one more thing. All right, cool. So in here, we're going to have a connection. And again, it's going to end up calling our auth to authenticate, right? So once we do that, we're going to go ahead and build our target, get our target list. In this case, and this would be connect.web.list.get by title, right? So this takes an argument. The argument here is going to be list name, you know, which is the argument that we're passing in, right? So it'll be list name. Next, we're going to pretty much a response back of the list of items. The items would be our list object, pretty much what we're getting back. So in order to get that back, it would be target list items get, and then it would be execute query, right? And then this is where we would do a return items. So really this is it, dude. When it comes to the Office 365 API portion of it, right, our class, our SharePoint class, we're literally just adding these 5 lines of code, and this would give us back our SharePoint list, right? So it's pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to create a new file, and this new file, I'm going to call it download list, right? So in this download list file, this is more like a sample code, think of it that way, where we're going to be connecting to SharePoint, like calling our Office 365 class, the class in that file, which is SharePoint, and then we're going to end up calling the list and do all of that. But I'm going to be putting some code in here on and for the script to take some arguments, and then of course give you the ability to save it in CSV or Excel, right, one or the other. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and get started. In this piece, we will do from let's see, Office 365 API import SharePoint, right? So that's the first thing. Next, we're going to import systems, and then we're going to import CSV, because again, we're going to be exporting to CSV. And the next thing we're going to import in, it's going to be from my bad, pass lib import purepass, because we're going to be building our directory, right, our root directory pass with our file name. So that's the reason why we bring that in. Then the final package is going to be import open py excel, from open py excel import workbook. So this package we do not have installed yet, right? Now I do have it installed on my side, but in the if you're cloning this repo, it would not be initially part of that requirements.txt file. So you will have to go ahead and add it. So in this case, remember, dude, I'm going to be talking about this more and more. Virtual environments. If you're not familiar with it, get familiar with virtual environments. Strongly recommend to always use virtual environments. Even if you're just testing out, use virtual environments. It'll keep your environments clean and prevent issues related to installing packages that could affect other packages. So either way, but if you don't have it installed, go ahead and do pip install open py excel. Again, I already have it installed. I don't need to do this, but if you don't have it, that's what you would do, right? So just FYI on that piece. So now let's go ahead and bring in our arguments, right? So let's see. Argument number 1 would be the name of the SharePoint list, right? So this would be called SharePoint list name, and this would be system argument number 1. Remember, when in Python, whenever you go to the terminal, you type in Python, and then it's space, and then it's normally the file name, right? Not normally, it should be the file name that you're trying to run. That file name is argument 0, index 0. Because the way Python works, those of you who are new, you don't start from 1 then go up. It's not 1, 2, or 3. The starting point is 0, then 1, 2, and 3. Right? So just for those of you who are new and learning, just wanted to put that out there. So our second argument is going to be, let's see, it's going to be what I'm going to call export type. It can be Excel or CSV, right? So just keep that in mind. It could be, and this is the format, Excel / or CSV. So this would be export type, Same thing, system argument number 2. All right, so now third argument is going to be local directory pass, right? So this we're gonna call directory pass. So this directory pass, let me kind of notate local directory pass to save list data set. So since we're downloading the list from SharePoint, we need to save it somewhere. In this case, you could be save it somewhere locally or some kind of network folder or some sort, right? But that's kind of what this is. So this would be argument number 3. The final argument, and this would be the name of the file that will get saved on a local directory, right? So pretty much this is the file name. So I'm going to call this file name, and this would be our argument number 4, right? So now we have all of our arguments. Let's go ahead and let's create our first function. The first function that we're going to create here is going to be, we're going to call this save to CSV, right? And this is going to take in 3 arguments. It will be list name, directory pass, and file name. All right, so it takes in 3 arguments. What we're going to do here, we're going to do a directory file pass. So this variable is going to be our full root directory pass, where we're going to save the file to, and then also the file name, right? So it's going to be both. So this is where pure path will come in. So we'll do pure path directory pass, and then it would be file name. Oops, file name. All right, and then this is where we're going to end up using the CSV package. So what we're going to be doing here is under with open, we are going to specify the with directory file pass, comma, write, not write B, WB, just W. It's strictly just raw text. Let's see, new line equals /n. We wanted to apply a new line special character at the end. And then also our encoding would be UTF-8, right? And this would be F for file. That's what we call it, right? Okay, so one of the things that we're going to end up doing here is, see how we have the list name object that we're bringing in? We're going to end up extracting the header information from there and then save it to our CSV file. So in order to do that, let's call this header, and it will be list name index 0, right? I want the first index. Then it would be properties keys. So it is in the form of a dictionary object. So what we're doing here is we're getting the first row, and then from there we're getting the properties, then we're specifying and give me back the keys. I think of it as when you're working with a dictionary, those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a key value, right? You have a key name, then some and a value associated. Well, in this case, we're getting back a list of keys only. So this is actually returning back in a format of a list, and it's only specifying the name of each key in the list, right? So this header is really a list. it's a list object, right? So that we're getting back. So because of that, now we're gonna just call this W, and we're gonna call this CSV dictionary writer F, because this is a file object over here, right? That we're trying to write to. And then I'm gonna say header, and then ultimately it's gonna end up writing that to our file, and that gives us the header. We're writing the header to our file. And then to finish it off, I would do write header. Okay. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call this item in list name. Did I call this list name? You know what? This is not. This should be my bad. This is not list name. This is list items, because this is the actual object of the list of all the items. So let me go ahead and change the name on this. List items. Cool. Right. And then also now what I'm going to do here is, as we get back a list of every item, I'm going to be writing that out. And this, I would do a write row item dot properties. Okay. And then based on that which is in the form of a dictionary, we're going to be writing that out to our CSV file. Okay. And that's it, dude. This function here, by us passing these arguments, is gonna take, this is the object, the list items object, this is the pass on where we want to save it to, and then this is the file name that we want to give it to save to, and then it would do the rest from here. So now that we have that, we're gonna now create another function. We're gonna call this save to Excel. And it will be the same thing, list items, directory path, and file name. All right. Now this one will have a few more steps because we're dealing with Excel, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. We are dealing with Excel here, so a few more steps. What we end up doing here is we are going to have a directory. Well, you know what? Let me copy it from on top. We are going to have this. This will be the same. Alright, so now that we have that piece, the next piece is we're going to call this this object VB, and it's going to stand for workbook. Okay, so again, this is kind of going back, we're importing in the workbook class, and that's what we're calling here. So based on the class, we're pretty much just getting a copy of that. We're creating a new instance for this object, which we're calling WB for workbook. The next one is going to be worksheet, because in Excel you have a workbook and you have worksheets, right? Since we're going to be creating a new workbook and a new worksheet, by default, what we're going to do here is we're going to say workbook active. What this means is pretty much saying, okay, go ahead and give me the active worksheet in the workbook that we're creating, right? This is our workbook instance. Go ahead and give me the first worksheet in that workbook, and in order to do that, it'll be wb.active, and that would be our worksheet, WS worksheet, right? So the next thing, let's call this list of header names from SharePoint list. So this is where we kind of, what we did up here, get our header, our list items, right? Property, this is our header information. So we're kind of doing something similar, like, so let's go ahead and copy this, because this will actually be the same. We do need this, right? Now we have a header list. The next thing is going to be write headers on first row. All right, and in order to do that, we will go ahead and do for, so before I do that, I guess let me do it before index name in enumerate header. Okay, so if you're not familiar with enumerate, it works the same way as just iterating over a list. The difference is it gives you a index value. And again, the starting index is always 0. So think of it as a sequencer. It allows you to get a sequencer as you iterate through your list. That's pretty much what that does. So in this case, I'm going to be calling my WS, my worksheet, cell, because now I'm going to start specifying a cell that I want to write data into, right? So the first one is going to be row, and this will be row 1, because my row 1 is going to be my header. The next one is going to be column, and column, this is where it's a variable. It's going to be moving from one column to the next. So the way I would do this is where enumerate comes in, because I do have this index value. Think of it as a sequence number, which starts at 0 and it goes up. This is where I will call that, and I will do +1, because I really wanted to start at 1, not 0. Because again, Excel does not have 0 index placements. In Excel, it starts at 1, but in Python, it starts at 0. So in order to make them be equal, have to add 1, and it will increment up, right? It'll be column 1, 2, and 3, and so on when it comes to writing. And then, of course, the next one is going to be the value. What am I going to write in the cell? And in this case, it would be the name. That's where the name comes in right here. So this would write our header to our Excel file. That's exactly what that's doing, right? So now the next thing is going to be write details starting or write line items starting on second row. So we don't want to write it in the first row, because the first row is the header. We want to write this on the second row. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to call this row 2. So instead of hard coding 1 like the way I did over here, I'm going to actually, I have this object called row, and it's going to be starting at 2. Then I'm going to have that increment up as we kind of iterate through the process, right? That's how we kind of get it to go up. So now I'm going to do my iteration, and I'm going to call this dictionary object in list items. And then from here, because what I'm doing is I have a list of objects inside, like dictionary objects. So think of it as a list, and inside that list, instead of having values, I actually have dictionaries inside. And so now I got to extract data from those dictionaries to be able to write to Excel. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. So this will be the same concept. It will be index item in enumerate dictionary object dot properties dot items. Okay, and this will give us our items. And then same thing, right? Worksheet cell row equals row, right? Instead of row equals 1, in this case row equals row, which is this guy over here. And then it would be column equals index plus 1. Because again, we're starting a different row, but we still wanted to go across and set all of the values, which in this case would be item. Then it would be index 1, right? So index 1. And the reason why we're doing index 1, this is really a tuple. When we get item, I believe it's a tuple, and it has the first index 0 is the key name, then the second index, like in index 1, is the actual value, and that's why we're doing it this way. And then I'm going to add over here row plus equals 1. This will make it increment up. And then at the very end of the process, we will do workbook save directory file path. And this is ultimately this, we want to save it under this path and this file name to save this object that we have. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to need to do here is we're going to create another function, and we're gonna call this set file file extension. So because one of the arguments is file name, we're not gonna specify here the kind of extension that it needs. We're just saying provide a file name, and based on the export type, we're gonna use this function to determine which file extension it will need, and ultimately this will build that new file name for us. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Slightly different. I mean, maybe more than what it needs to be, but you know, just to make it a bit easier. So the logic would be export type equals Excel, and if that's true, then we will call this file name with extension equals dot join. Again, join takes a list argument, and inside the list you can put many values to join. So in our case, it will be file name, comma, dot XLSX. All right. The next one will be if export type equals CSV, then it will be the same thing, but the difference here is going to be CSV. I mean, yeah, CSV for the extension. Then of course it becomes else file name with extension just equals file name. So if they don't specify Excel or CSV, it would just spit back whatever file name they gave, right? And that would be the what gets assigned to this new file name with extension. All right, and then finally we're going to create one more last function, and this function would be to be able to download list. And this is going to take the list name, export type, directory path, and file name. Pretty much taking all the arguments, right? It's what this is doing. And inside here, this is where we would call this let's call this SP list, and this would be SharePoint get list, and it would be the list name, and that would return back our SharePoint list. And then this is where we would have logic. Same thing. It will be if export type equals Excel, right? If it equals Excel, we're gonna call the save to Excel function that we created, and this is gonna take the SP list, the directory path, file name, and that's it. And then we're gonna have if export type equals CSV, it would be the other function that we created, save to CSV. So it'll be the same thing as plist directory path file name, and then we're going to do an else, and this we're just going to print, you know, export type is not a valid type, which means whatever they typed in is not valid. And this is pretty much it, guys. Now, in order to run these functions and run everything, we are going to put in the toward the bottom of our file, we're going to create a if statement. Name equals. So by doing this, this would allow to run this code that we're about to add. So the first thing we're going to be doing, we're going to, in order to get our new file name with extension, we're going to create a new variable, a new object called file name. It would be set file name with extension, and in this case we're going to call file name. It's going to be one of our arguments, and export type, right? And then after that we're going to end up calling our download list function, and again this we're going to be SharePoint list name variable, export type, directory path, and then the new file name, not the uppercase one but the lowercase one, which is this guy. And really this is it, guys. This is pretty much it. So the only thing that we need to do now is just go ahead and run it. The only thing that we need to do now. We need to test it out, right? Let's test it out to make sure everything works. So what I'm gonna do is I have a folder, my download. I think, what did I call it? What the hell? Let me find it real quick. With the files, there goes files. Boom. So we're gonna do a test, and we're gonna save it in here in this folder, right? So let me go ahead and copy this, and ultimately files should get saved in there if everything works successfully. What I'm gonna need to pass in as my arguments is, let me check something out. I want to make sure my, you know what it is. I have all my credentials and everything in my .env file, so we should be good. So I'm gonna pass in my SharePoint name. So let me go ahead and open that up real quick. So this is my SharePoint list name, right? So in my case, called employee onboarding. And this is what I'm bringing in. All right, so we have that. Export type, we're gonna try both Excel CSV. Directory path is where I want to save to, which in my case, I'm gonna save it here to this folder. And then of course, file name, whatever file name I want to give it. So let's go ahead and test this out. So let me go ahead and what is it? YouTube. Python, SharePoint. There it goes. This is it. Let me go ahead and activate my environment. All right, cool. So now we're gonna go ahead and run our download list py file, right? So it will be Python download list py. Again, our first argument is going to be SharePoint list name. In our case, employee onboarding, right? Is that what it's called? Employee onboarding. Yep. So I'm gonna put that in double quotes. Our second argument is going to be Excel export type. So let's go ahead and do CSV first, right? We'll do CSV. Third will be directory path. Again, this is where I want the files to get saved to. And then fourth is going to be file name. So I'm just going to call this for now employee onboarding export, right? That's all. So again, those are my arguments. List name, export type, where it's going to get saved to, right? My directory path, and the file name. So if I hit enter, let's cross fingers, see if it works. All right, no errors. Let's go to our folder. Boom, we got a file here. CSV. Let's open this bad boy up. Boom, there you go. So this ended up taking, so also keep in mind, when you look at it, these are the main columns that you see. There are other columns that exist for the list that you may not see. For example, create a date, modify date, right? What else? This GUID ID, right? So there you do got these values that just may not necessarily, you may not see visually, but there will be part of your extract. And of course you have all your main files, your main column that you see, like work. This column is called work, but in the table, in the list, is actually called title, and it's, these are your values, your IDs for each record, attachments, true or false. Like this guy has an attachment, but this one does not, right? True and false. Description, their description over here. So again, you do have everything, and plus a little extra, some other information. But again, it did what we wanted to do, right? It exported out to CSV. Now let's go ahead and try it again. But the difference is we're gonna call it the same name. But the difference is we want the export type to be Excel instead of CSV. So let's go ahead and run it. All right, no errors. That's good. So now we have an Excel file. Go ahead and open this bad boy up, and boom, same thing, right? It looks completely the same. It just one's Excel, one's CSV. That's the only difference. So again, this kind of gives you the core of, again, we're adding on to our Office 365 API Python file. My main goal with this file is I want to have a lot of the core functions that we would do, like use to interact with SharePoint, which is upload file, download file, which would be also upload list, like create list, you know, download list, you know, get, you know, file URL, like shareable link, like all of these stuff that, you know, probably comes to mind where we could like have some kind of script to automate the process. That's where I'm going to be adding on to this. That's the main goal and purpose with the video that we're doing. And of course, this download list file is more like a sample of, it may be a little bit more than a traditional sample, but I try to build it where I know some of my viewers can actually use this file. Like if they really want to, they could literally take this file as is and start using it just by providing the arguments, like the way I did, right? Pass the argument. I'm not hard coding nothing in. These are all just arguments that we're passing in. They could literally just take that and throw it in their system and have it run, and it's good to go. So I'm trying to add some, trying to give you a sample how to use it, but I'm trying to add some, you know, try to build the code where it's reusable, very easy out of the box as well. So, but again, it worked, guys. That did the job. It downloaded files from our list and did exactly what I wanted to do. Again, guys, man, I appreciate it for watching. Appreciate y'all for following me, showing support. Hopefully this video helps y'all. I will be adding on, how I mentioned, this is a multi-part series video where I'm going to be adding more and more functionality to the Office 365 API file, you know, so just keep that in mind. But hopefully this helps you out, and the end goal result would be one file to bring in to ultimately allow you to do X, Y, and Z, download, upload, create, so you know the list goes on and on with SharePoint stuff. So again, guys, appreciate it. Give me a like, give me a follow, appreciate all the support, and hopefully this helps you out. Peace.